Welcome to the Earn Your Marks podcast, presented by Pro Exam Tutors, the only podcast you need to pass the CFP exam and become a certified financial planner professional. Here's your host, Sev Meneshian.
Welcome to the Earn Your Marks podcast. I'm Sev Meneshian. I am the lead tutor and founder of Pro Exam Tutors. I'm very excited to have with us today Logan Richard. Logan is going to share some of his experiences with the CFP exam, which we all know is not a very fun exam to take. It's very grueling. And Logan has been with a provider. We're going to talk about the provider or providers, the exam prep providers that he's been with. So with that, Logan, the floor is yours. And I figured we'd just start off with, if you wouldn't mind providing just a little bit of a brief background, like how you got to the point where you wanted to take the CFP. Was this required by your company, or is it something that you've pretty much aimed for? Because looks like a lot of people are sitting for the exam, about 7,000 people a year. So
yeah,
that was just
thank you.
A little bit of
yes, like Sev was saying, I'm Logan Richard. I took the CFP 3 times, so I know how much of a bumpy road it can be. I'm currently a wealth management associate at Denver Private Wealth Management, small RIA in Denver, Colorado. I've been here about 2 years now.
Nice.
I went to the University of Colorado Boulder, is where I got my education. So it was there where I kind of decided I wanted to do this CFP route. I started off in finance, and one of my teachers introduced me to this. It was the personal financial planning track or emphasis. Okay. And that's what got me into start talking about the CFP and how valuable it could be. I didn't even really know about it probably until my sophomore year of college. And after reading about it, that's where I kind of got all of this interest in it. And it was really nice. My bachelor degree actually qualified for the education portion.
Okay, so you didn't have to go through an education portion. That was just built into your degree program.
Yep, which is really nice. I know there's a couple colleges that do that now. So that was a really big portion of why I mean, if I already had the education portion, like might as well shoot for it. You know what I mean? So, and then after looking at some job opportunities, probably about my junior year, you could tell a lot of these small RIAs, that's who they're looking for, is a CFP or someone pursuing a CFP. So it wasn't anything that I got from my company. It was something that I found out I wanted to do towards in the middle of college.
Okay, and that's like similar to the group that I'm with. So I'm with a small RIA also. So we each have our own, our own book of business. And the way that we have it at our financial planning firm is, I'm the lead, the lead financial planner. So there are 3 of us. And then, so, I do the financial planning for the group. And then we have an enrolled agent too. So if we have tax issues, we have somebody that can give tax advice. Maybe if someone wants to do a Roth conversion, they're selling a business, whatever, or buying a business, whatever it happens to be. And then we have a third person that does the trading for our clients. So you guys have somewhat of a similar.
Yeah, ours is pretty similar. So right now we have 3 advisors. We have our managing advisor, and then we have a CFA who does a lot of the investment, like the investment side of it. But there's 5 of us in the investment committee. So kind of just like different points of view and everything. And we meet on a weekly basis there. So yeah, kind of seems like the same setup as what you have got going on.
Pretty typical. And so where the smaller RIAs, or if you look at the bigger companies, like if I want to get on with Vanguard or Fidelity or whomever, let's say a real big company too, there's this big push for the CFP certification. So but again, you didn't have to go through the additional core curriculum that was folded into your college.
So it was kind of a obviously longer route since it was through college. So like I had like estate planning, insurance, risk management. So those were all 1 semester classes is how it looked.
All right.
So it would be a 2 times a week, hour, 30-minute class is kind of how that worked. So,
but once you were done with school, so what was your degree? You may have mentioned it, but what was your degree again?
yeah, so Bachelor of Finance with an emphasis in personal financial planning.
Okay,
is how
got you.
it's titled. Yep.
All right. And then, so now you come out of school, and the age group for those taking for CFP exam candidates, it really ranges. Like, it can be from 22 right out of school. So I've helped a number of, let's say, recent college grads, which that has its own challenges. And then you can get somebody who is 62. Actually, there was one person I was communicating through the CFP candidate forum. I believe he was in his mid 80s and he was studying for the exam. So, and it was cool talking to him. He's like, who knows, maybe I got 20 years left, and he just really enjoyed the industry. But the challenge with those that are recent grads is obviously, like, the experience is not there. It's not a major, let's say, a major knock. Where the major thing comes in is that if someone's been in the industry for like 30 years and then they think maybe that they can walk into the exam using their experience, and a lot of times that doesn't turn out well. There's almost like a rewiring of the brain, because you've got all this real life stuff. Well, we're looking just pass an exam. So like in your case, once you graduated, how long did you wait to take the CFP?
So that first time I took it, I was pretty eager. Might have been part of the reason it was a fail on that first attempt, but I took it. I graduated in May. As I should, I took May off kind of to enjoy life a little bit. And then I started my job June 1st. So right away I started my job, and then July, I think it was like July 15th is when I took my first exam.
Oh, so you went into it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do a review course, or did you pick
Nope, not that first time. So I think I didn't really understand the full how expansive and how difficult this exam really was. And I think that has a lot to do with just coming out of school, getting 95% on my classes, thinking that I could do well, doing well on like my final exams for estate planning, that type of thing, where it is much different because it's all at once. So I think I had a lot more confidence than what should have been realized that first time. So no review course. I was literally studying my notes from classes.
All right.
Which is very different from studying for the exam. And I learned that after the first time. So I actually, before we started this, I looked at my test results from the first 2 times. And that first time I took it, I only passed 3 of the subjects.
Okay. If I had to guess where you struggled, because, and this is just, I talk to so many people, and what consistently comes up is there's problems with, and it's probably in this order. Income tax is always number 1 with the most difficult area. Then it's followed by retirement, and then with the states after that. Do you happen to remember, like, if?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at, so the 3 I passed were psychology of financial planning, and then estate planning, actually, and general principles. And I think part of that estate planning was, I think a big part of it was that was in my last semester of school. So I kind of had it fresh, and I kind of knew those details, where like income taxation, I took that class 2 years before I took that, I took the CFP.
Forget that. So, that's going to be out.
Yeah.
Because the tax stuff you got to be on top of. So, well, okay. So you go through if I imagine you were disappointed, but I can't imagine that you were crushed, because now you understood what it was about. It's not like it was a lack of purposeful preparation. It's just like, hey, I got my degree. This is a 6-hour exam. You had taken who knows how many exams up to that point through school. So
so there was kind of 2 parts to it. One, it was more difficult going to work that next time, and then having to discuss that. But one of my coworkers, who's a CFP for about 6 or 7 years now, he even said, he's like, I kind of knew you weren't going to pass it by the time that you put in no review course. But he's like, I didn't, he was like, you were new to the company. I didn't know your thought, like how you work So he's like, I'll let you give it a shot. And
Okay.
then I got some advice for him for the second time. So that was a whole different story. But yeah, it was kind of nice that honestly, like, because if I only pass one, that's way different than if I pass 6 or 7 of the 8. And it's like, I was so close.
You're close,
It's like,
yeah.
I knew, like, I wasn't even close. Like, I just got to redo this thing.
Okay. So you kind of you regroup, maybe you took some time off. A lot of students that take the exam in July, they'll just, if they don't do well, or, they contact me or somebody, and they'll just say, what do I do next? Should I get back into it? I always just suggest, take a good, at least a couple of weeks off, if not a month, because you got to rest your mind, and it's a huge, it's kind of a crushing thing. So when you then regather yourself, did you then, did you pick a review, an exam review provider, like based off of your friend or your coworker's advice, or were you poking around the internet? Just
it was kind of a mix of things. So one, just going through and just doing some research, and then talking to, so some of the people I had in my class, they passed it on that July exam. So I specifically talked to those people and was like, what did you do? And they kind of told me like what classes they took. And I was looking, prices were part of the issue as well. So my company paid for the first exam, which is really nice. I think a lot of places do that. And it makes sense, but they paid for one. And they were kind of like, we're going to pay for you for the first time. And then after that, you're kind of on your own, which makes sense. So now I kind of had to fluctuate price in there a little bit, but I ended up going with the Kaplan review course. And it was really nice because this was so I took it again in November. So I took about a month off, and I was like, since I have all of this stuff, like in my mind, I think I should just go for it again in November. And Kaplan had their live course in Denver, which was really nice. So I didn't have to travel. It was like 25 minutes from where I lived.
Perfect.
So that was a big part of it. And I did the guarantee to pass, which I'm glad I ended up doing.
So that was what? So you went with Kaplan. There's some type of guaranteed to pass. So if you don't pass the exam, they let you retake it, and is there a minimal cost or anything, or no?
Yeah. So it's completely free, and you get all of the materials and tests and everything again.
Oh, nice. All right. So you go through that, and then, was that a boot camp style, or was it over a 2-month period where you're meeting a couple times a week?
Yeah. So with Kaplan, so they do, they kind of set it up to be like I think like a 10 to 12, like a 12-week course type of gig, but it depends. So they just kind of figure out. So they put like a time frame on every single task, and they split it up within however many weeks you started to your date. So like the first time I took it, it was like I had to do like 14 hours a week. And then the last time I took it, I started much earlier, and it was more like 7 hours a week. So it really just depends on when you started, and that's kind of how they set you up for it.
There's no hard start line. If it's like, you're going to start up, it's going to be September 1st, and then we're going to meet twice a week. So if you want to really start it in July or something, or in August, then they'll, mold that study schedule.
Yeah, it's like basically just being prorated. So however far away you are, it's just going to split it up evenly in that way. So the more time you start, like the earlier you start, the less time you're going to have to put in every single week, which is really nice. And then the live class was really nice. It was, trying to think, I think it was 4 days, like 9-hour days straight. Yep. So that was 2 weeks before the test, which was a really good time frame, I think.
All right.
So you kind of I think the goal, if I would have redone it, is to complete all of the coursework through your module, and then go into that live course. So then you have everything done. And then at that point, it's just 4 days of final review and getting it done. So that was very intense. You got breakfast and lunch there, and it was a full day. So I had to call off 2 days off of work. But it was really beneficial.
And did you go Thursday through Sunday, something like that? Okay. Sunday did they give you a little bit of a break time wise or?
I think Sunday was kind of the same thing. They did like a full practice exam on that last day and everything. So
All right. So that's
really trying to get you ready.
like a 6 hour. So you guys did a full 6 hour practice exam or?
I'm trying to think. I think they kind of like set us up and then they sent us home to do the practice exam on the Kaplan course.
Got it.
So it was kind of like one of those things like, we're done here. You should go take this though now. Like this is a good time to do it.
That makes sense because they went through the whole, 36 hours or whatever the class time was. And then, so do you remember the second time you took it? Do you remember how you did on the practice?
Yeah. So story was so my second and third time, there's been some hiccups. So for anyone about to take the test, just be prepared. All right. Go early. So the second time I took it, I left my apartment an hour early and I'm driving there, aiming to get there 30, 45 minutes early. My tire pops on the highway.
Of course. Okay.
And that is just like the last thing you want at that time, but you got to prepare for the unexpected. So this thing happens. I end up pulling off, driving into like a gas station, the first exit, and getting an Uber at 7:30 in the morning to go to my exam. And I had to just leave my car there. I called one of my friends to help me out, but it's just like one of those things you really have to compartmentalize a little bit and just like, that's done with. You gotta, anything that's like a hiccup before, you just gotta kind of put it away and you're on a whole new journey here. And you just gotta kind of refresh your mind and not let things like that. It can be like the littlest thing, a big thunderstorm the day of your test or not feeling great. You just got to kind of work on dealing with that stuff. And that's something that I think is good when you're prepping for the exam.
Okay.
So when stuff like that happens, don't take a day off of studying because that might be the day that your test is. And I think that's something but yeah, so that second time, really unfortunate, had my tire pop on the way, ended up Ubering there, taking the test. And then I ended up, I have it here. I passed 5 of the 8 this time.
Okay, so a lot closer because it was 3 out of 8 the first time.
Yeah,
5 out of 8, and of course we'll get to the successful part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other thing I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, prepare, expect the unexpected. There are a couple of students I know of that. One did a proctored exam. And the internet went out of all days, and she's in this was in like LA area, so you'd figure big city probably should have stable internet. That went out, that just threw her off. Another one was doing a remote, and something happened. It wasn't the internet, just whatever, the system went down. He was like 4.5, almost 5 hours to the exam. They go, no, you got to redo it. And then another guy I know took it at the exam center. And the system went out. I don't think it was internet related. And they said, no, even though it's our fault, you got to redo this thing. So yeah, like that's rare to happen. I mean, in your case, that's very, very rare.
Yeah.
That's a new one for me to hear, but yeah, stuff happens. So that's why, if you were what, 20 minutes away from the center. So you left an hour early. So that's pretty good. So at least you got there on time.
Yeah, I still got there around on time. But yeah, that was a little stressful. But the thing was, so if anyone's like taking it, if it's like your second time, so I passed 5 of the 8, but they were all, because you can kind of see it puts like a dot on it. I don't know if you've seen like how it looks.
Metric, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all 5 that I passed were right there on the edge. So I honestly think if I would have been strong in those 5, I might have passed it because I know it's complicated how it works, but you can score strong to help some places that you score weak. So even though I passed 5, they were all really close. And I think that was part of the problem on that second time that I took it. Yeah. It
didn't drag the other lower areas up. Yeah. And that's a misconception where, you do not have to pass all 8 of the areas. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can maybe pass, let's say 5 of them. And if that black dot is way off to the right, that can pull up maybe the income tax part where the black dot is, maybe a little bit under that halfway mark. So, okay, so you do that. And then on I'm just going to guess that you took it again the next March cycle. Is that?
I actually waited until July.
Okay.
Because I do think part of that was me rushing into it a little bit after the first time. And like I said, I went into that Kaplan course and it was like 12 hours a week. And so that's just, I don't know. I thought I should take a little bit longer of a break. And I think a big part of it is you want to take it when you're going to have the least distractions. I'm a big sports guy. I live in Colorado. I ski a lot.
Okay.
I knew me skiing on the weekends, my friends asking me to go skiing. You got basketball, March Madness. I know those are all going to be distractions that I am not going to want to miss out on, or it's going to be really tough for me to miss out on.
Right.
So I was like, July is the middle of summer. Obviously, there's a lot of fun things going on in the summer, but I think I'm going to do better at saying no to a lot of these things.
Right.
In the summer when I don't have some of the things that I love more happening in March. So that was a big reason. I think that's something people should think about when they're trying to pick out what session they're going to be doing their exam in.
Right. Yeah, because it's like, and that there's somebody I'm helping now, where it's the same thing. It's like, he's like, I just want to enjoy the summer. And I was like, that's perfectly fine. He's doing light studying, but then I told him, hey, September 1st comes around. That's, roughly 8 to 10 weeks before the exam. September 1st, you just got to give up your life and put it all into the exam, 2 hours a day, minimum studying. You want to be hitting the books, 4 to 6 hours on the weekend. And then just to sprint into the exam, you just got to do a sprint for about 2 months or so. But no, that's smart thinking on your own. There's another guy I talked to who was studying note cards like the night before his wedding. I was like, yeah, this is a major event, man. Like you can't, you're not going to be able to concentrate on it. So you got that part right. So you take it in November, it doesn't go in your direction mentally too. For those listening that have taken it 2, 3, maybe 4 times, was there any doubt that you were going to take it again? Like, had you gotten so frustrated with yourself, or were you just being stubborn and just saying, the hell with this, I'm just going to go for it again?
So it was kind of one of the things. So I failed in November, kind of gave myself until like New Year's and stuff to just kind of relax. And then I actually went to my company as kind of like, I really like at this point, I was hoping to start getting some clients and everything in, and I brought in a couple and they kind of pushed me back, and they're like, we hired you to be a CFP. We want you to be a CFP. This is the right way. You're going to do it. Okay. So I kind of got that halt back a little bit, and that kind of helped me to like reframe where I want to go and what I want to do. So also part of the reason pushing it to July was, so I actually started roughly in about April. That gave me about 4 months. So like when I started that Kaplan course, it was like, I remember I think it said like 5 or 6 hours a week, which is like not a lot at all. And it's just because I started like so early, and my whole thing was I did much more of a game plan kind of from the beginning. So I kind of scheduled out, I want to finish like reading all of the books by X date. Okay. And then get through. And then I wanted to, a big part of it was, doing note cards and everything. That was just helping to like write stuff down and remember it, and then be able to look back on those in a short amount of time compared to having to like reread the book later on.
Okay. You did reread would these be considered like the pre-study books that they give you before?
The Kaplan like books for each one. So they were roughly, they change from like 130 to 200 pages per subject.
And they give you, there's 5 core subjects. I mentioned you got like 5, maybe 6 books.
So you got 6, and then they give you a 7th one for case studies. So there's like about 20 case studies in there, which is nice. Got you.
Yeah. And then, on the case study, we won't go over it here, but I've done a video before. It's like, how do you tackle the case studies? Mm-hmm. And the case studies, as big of a pain as they are, those are excellent studying tools too, because the information. It's just now a matter of digging into that case study and then extract.
Yeah, I will say one quick thing in the case study. So the second time I took it, the very first question was a case study.
All right.
puts a big hiccup. But one thing that's really nice when you get into the CFP exam is you can skip questions whenever you want. So my advice, at least how I tackled it, because it's in 4 sections of 43 questions. Whenever you get that case study, go through all of the other questions and then do the case study at the end. Maybe unless it's your last section, you might not want to finish with it. But I think if it's your first or second or third, finish all of those one questions and then do the case study at the end of the section. That's how I tackled it, and it helped my anxiety a lot when I was in the exam.
Yeah, because it's like you can answer, like, you're going to have a lot of questions. Now, the exam is split into 2 parts, but it's 2 major parts. But each one of those 2 parts, there's a break point in there. So really, you can see the exam is in 4 sections. So that case study. So right off the bat, you got 10 questions on a case, something like 8-10 questions.
Usually about, I think most of mine were around 10 to 12.
And and so you save those to the end, and then all right, so you get through that. And was that on your second or third attempt?
Yeah, the second one, it was literally the very first question, that is the worst thing. If they forced you to answer that right away, that's just so tough. Starting off, that's like trying to shoot a game winner on the first after the tip. It's just you're not warmed up at all.
No, So so that's the second. The third time around, you did not change providers because you had this, so-called, let's say, guaranteed to pass, or basically, if you don't do well, so you sat through the same exact curriculum. I shouldn't say the curriculum, but the test prep course again.
Yeah, I mean, they update their videos, especially this last year because of the Secure Act. There's a lot of things changing. So I kind of noticed, I don't know, probably 30 to 40% of the videos were kind of updated. Some of them didn't need updating, but so it was more not changing the test prep, more of changing how I prepped, how I used that test prep. So a big one was starting earlier, putting a lot more hours in, but a big thing that the first and second time, and I know people coming out of college are going to struggle with this, it's much different when you're older and have a family and kind of have it all figured out compared to just coming straight out of college.
Yeah.
You got to take at least a month, preferably 2 months off. Don't go out on the weekends.
Exactly.
And it's tough. It really is tough to tell your friends no.
And
this was something I made myself agree to. So I went completely sober for a month and a half before my exam. And that helped me with just saying no to going out. And in every exam, when you think, I mean, the July exam, there is 1 4th of July, you cannot go out, can't do anything. And it sucks, but it's one, and you will never have to do it again. You're done. And that was something I really struggled with the first couple of times. And then I just had to accept. And it's the same thing with the November exam. You kind of have Thanksgiving right there too. So it's just, I think it's a month and a half where you have to sit in every single weekend and just push through it.
Yeah.
So that was a big change from the second to third time that I took it.
Nice. Okay. So because the question always comes up, whether it's in the candidate forum or, somebody contacts me and they're asking, what provider do I go with? My generic answer is, look, it really, at the end of the day, I don't think that it matters. The material, for the most part, it's the same from one provider to another. I've seen plenty of providers and their material, that it does not really change from one to another. Maybe you might get an instructor that really, what he or she is talking about hits home better than another instructor. But at the end of the day, I mean, would you agree it's 99% it's the students' efforts? Is that?
Yep. It's how much time you put in. It really is. And it's really knowing the concepts and how they work together instead of you can't memorize any of this stuff. So it's really just putting the time in and learning it. I could just tell the second to third time, that third time I took it, there were so many things that I picked up on that I just totally didn't even think of in the second time.
Got it.
And you'll notice the more the more you study and everything, how it just gets ingrained into your brain. And at that point, it makes like, there's a bunch of the questions on the exam that I'm like, I 100% know this. And this is like, and like that went from like 40% of the questions the second time to like 75 to 80% on that third time. And that's really just putting the time in is the big difference for that.
So this is, as we're talking here, anyone listening, this is not an endorsement for Kaplan or anything. We just want to, because there are so many providers, the ultimate aim is to say, okay, I'm going to now listen to the video on the person that passed with Dalton or with Danko or whatever other provider, doesn't matter. But I guess like to sum up things on the Kaplan side, is there anything that you really, really liked? And then, same thing, we're not knocking any of the providers, but the things that maybe that they can improve on or that you would have liked to have seen.
Yeah. With Kaplan, I wish they had so they just do one practice exam, which is nice, but I wish.
Okay.
They have a good test bank. I mean, they had 2,200 questions, I think, and I ended up going through about 1,700 of them.
Yeah.
So I really put in the questions this time, which I think is really important. Another thing to add, on this third time I took it, I finished all of my coursework 2 weeks before. And for 2 weeks, I only did practice questions. And I think that was really beneficial compared to the other times I finished my coursework kind of like when it tells you to, when you're doing any of these review courses, they have you finish up prep when you have your exam. And I think it's really beneficial to finishing it up about 2 weeks earlier to give you time to just do questions, get in that mode. But for Kaplan specifically, their live class, if it's somewhere there where you can travel to, or if it's in your like home city, that was huge. That helps so much. They give you some good pointers, some cheat sheet type things, like really condensing views of like what they've learned in like these classes. And then they do like group projects, which is like really nice because like a lot of the CFP stuff, like you're just learning on your own. So that's one thing I really like the live class for Kaplan.
Okay. So you didn't have a preference. I know some people, I don't know if I'd said to imagine, because I did a prep class and I sat through the 4 days, and I think actually that may have been through Kaplan too. It was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know if I would have gotten and they were not doing, the Zoom was not around or anything like that. I don't know if I would have gotten as much out of it if I was just sitting in my office or sitting at home, even if it was a live feed or something like that. Even if I couldn't, it just seems like maybe the live courses while you're sitting there, you probably are going to get more. Plus, you're able to collaborate, like it sounds like you did. And I don't know if you guys had a little offshoot study group, but those are helpful, obviously too. But yeah, as far as their questions, 2,000 is plenty. And when students are asking, okay, now I'm in the final month or 2 weeks, what should I do? I say you can't go wrong doing more questions, even if you're getting them right. It will force you to go back and say, oh, well, maybe I can just read up on whatever, section 1250 or 1245. Not to bring up bad memories for you, but the tax stuff is cool. So.
And with the questions, I really do think me taking it a couple of times now, I've kind of been in like what percent I believe is. So I really truly believe if you're taking these practice exams and these practice tests, and if you're getting 85 to 90, 95, you're in a good spot, especially because like you got to think about it. It's nerve wracking. Don't be surprised if you go down 10% on test day because there's so much anxiety and so nervous, but you're not going to go down 30% like from what you know. No. So if you're pushing 90%, you're in a good spot. But I remember the second time I was taking it, I was more in like the 70, 75 range. Okay. And you can kind of see how that ended up. So if you're at that 70, 75 range, like right now, don't be comfortable with that. Keep studying and try to push yourself closer to that 90%. And I think that's kind of where you want to be before test day.
So that's where you were like above 80%. Let's just say the last couple of weeks on. Would you line up like 100 questions or 50 questions at a time and then run?
So I would actually do, so each section is 42 or 43 questions on the CFP. So that's how I would split it up. I would almost always do 42 questions at a time.
Oh,
because that gets your mental fatigue, that helps with getting you set up for when the exam, because you're going to have to do 43 questions in a row. And those little breaks that you get in between, if you have time and everything, which that was something that I'd never really dealt with. I always took my break. I just think it's good, even if you don't need it. For me, it kind of made my brain like relax a little bit. So I would go out of the testing room, go get a drink of water, just walk around for 3 minutes, and then kind of come back into it, do a little stretch. And that just kind of helped me restart again.
Like reset. And that's, and if you're walking too, we don't want to underestimate the power of just getting the blood flow. Yep. Your brain is using so much energy and concentrating, you don't realize. And I imagine you're probably pretty exhausted after the exam, but if you get the blood going, the processor maybe works a little bit quicker that way. So in your breaks were what, like sound like 5
minutes usually, and then I'd go back into it, and then you get your lunch break, which use 30 of the 40 minutes. Don't push too close to going to like missing any time, but I'd say 30 minutes. Grab a little bit of food, and I don't know. I called my girlfriend, kind of helped me like relax a little bit. So calling family or friends. Yeah.
That's funny you did that too, because I called, I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but I called the woman I was dating at the time, eventually became my wife, but I called her. I was like, she's like, how's it going? I go, don't even ask. Like, this is just, it is not going well. It wound up going well, but thankfully, but yeah, that's good. Like you stuck with the same provider. They mentioned the information, to me at least, having seen so many of the providers' materials, like, it pretty much all looks the same. It's just the effort and then making those sacrifices, which you definitely did. And I'm curious too. So you went from passing the first time 3 out of the 8, and then 3 out of the 8 sections, then 5 out of the 8 sections. So what did the final, the third and successful one look like? Was that 7 out of 8, or
they don't give it to you when you pass? I don't believe, or maybe not until the final, because I don't get like my final result until like 4 weeks, I think, out. So I passed it 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're not official yet. So.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'm honestly, the way I felt though, I would be 95% sure I passed 7, maybe all 8 of the 8.
Okay. Ah, nice. Yeah.
So I think I did pretty well on them. There was only a handful that I had zero idea on. And usually you can bring it down to 2, but mentioning roadblocks and everything. So I had a hiccup the third time as well. So
you're not having good luck.
No. And it's really funny how this happens, but it's just like, sometimes it's just what's set out for you in life, and it's just roadblocks you got to deal with and you can't avoid. So the day before my exam, everyone says, you want to relax, just kind of, I don't know, maybe watch a movie, just don't do much. My dog, I live alone. I had to take him to the emergency room, like the doggy emergency room.
Yeah.
And he had some stomach and problems and was not feeling good. So I ended up taking him to the vet at like 7:30 p.m. the day before my test. Ended up getting home around 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m.
Which you probably wanted to be in bed by, 10,
a little earlier than that. So it's just like one of those things, but you just gotta prep for those things. And the thing is, it's like hard to think about, but the next day you can't think about stuff like that. You just gotta, once you're in it, in the zone, like that's all that really matters for the next like 6 hours, and then you can go back to other things. But yeah, if you got road bumps, it happens to people. Yeah, you can still pass. I passed. I've had my tire pop. I've had my dog in an emergency room, and sometimes life can be crazy, but I ended up passing. So just keep your foot down and keep going.
Well, good. I know for anyone listening, definitely is going to, appreciate your feedback. Like I said, I just want to make it easier for people to settle on a provider. I mentioned before, we're not endorsing or knocking a provider or anything like that. It looks like you had a good experience with Kaplan, which is which is not surprising. And then, they helped you through the exam, but you're the one that really got through it. So, congratulations on passing. I'm sure it was, you were able to make up for lost time. So, but there we have it. So hopefully those of you listening get a couple of good nuggets of information from Logan. I definitely want to thank you for coming on, and I guess the next step is to print those 3 letters and the registered mark, of course, behind your name.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And if anyone's got questions, feel free to email me. I don't know, I can just say it, or if we want to put it on there. But yeah, just lrichard@denverpwm.com. So I'm always open to giving some advice if anyone needs some extra.
Awesome. Much appreciated. And you'll be helping a ton of people.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Earn Your Marks podcast. For more information or to get in touch, visit us at proexamtutors.com.